In this final segment, we'll move into practice. Soul fragrance is not an abstract idea. It shows up in the way we live. It shows up in integrity, kindness. This beauty cannot be bought. It cannot be injected or filtered. It is cultivated, and eventually it becomes the fragrance of the soul, the atmosphere of a person who has been tending to their fragrant inner garden. Welcome back. As you know me from past podcasts with the Divine Within, I love diving into the practical techniques, methods that we can explore and get curious around. And so what comes up first, though, is what stops us. And often when we look at the practices that will encourage the things that we aspire to, in this case, creating a fragrant soul, in that attractive fragrance, because not to be differentiated from an unpleasant fragrance, right? We're definitely
Yeah.
talking about the attractive fragrance. And what comes to mind is when we were saying it at the beginning of the podcast, when it goes to the extreme where you're not even considering your inner life, right? And that's why we're here, to encourage you to consider that inner life. And generally, it's something that you mentioned earlier: vanity, pride, egocentrism, um, desiring for people to want you for who you are on the outside and not necessarily on the inside. And so there is a truth radar to that, especially when you're considering who you may procreate with, who you may mate with, or get into teams with, get into businesses with, get into communities with. There's a fragrance about you that is this kind of energetic frequency, in a way, that you're putting out as an attractor and as a magnetizer. So are you putting out what you want to attract? And to get clear on that, I think, is a really important thing.
And I think it comes from an inner confidence. You know, when you're confident about yourself, then you're more confident in what you're speaking. You can be more your true self instead of saying, oh, I wish I would have said that, or oh, I wish I didn't say it like that. It came across wrong. I think the more that you have such inner confidence, inner beauty, rather, you will actually be saying what you mean to say, doing what you mean to do, and attracting the right people for the right reasons as well. So again, it comes back to spend as much time on your inner self as we're spending on our outer self. Um, and really thinking about what's next. What is that next life going to be? I mean, we all know we're going to die. We're all going to die and go away. Where are we going to go? What are we going to look like? What are we going to be doing? Well, we can look up in the sky. Will we be floating on a cloud for eternity? Probably not. I don't know, right? We're going to be doing something. There's a lot of readings and a lot of research that will give you more detail about what you're going to be doing, what you have the opportunity to do. But we all can pretty much agree that we're going to leave here and go somewhere else. This is where we start. So if we want to look as good as we do now, or even better, what you can do is work on the inside, work on your soul. That is one thing that you have so much control over, so many choices over. You don't really have any control or choices over your outer physical looks. You are who you are because of your parents. And that's who you are. That's what you're going to look like. You have to work with what you got. But it seems to me that you can improve your looks on the next afterlife by increasing your spirituality, doing things to spritz your soul. So think about what you're going to be doing in the afterlife, what you want
Yes.
to look like. And do you want to float around on a cloud or not? Probably not. Think about that,
Well,
though.
and some think that they may come back as a cow after being a human, or a lesser class if they return to this planet. So, what are these practical things? And you and I came up with a few, and values. I mentioned that earlier. Living up in integrity to the values that we say you have. So, what are values? It's not you value a car that we're talking
Uh-huh.
about, or you valuing money. It's kindness, compassion, living altruistically, living in service to the greater whole. You as an integral, unique, intrinsically valuable human playing a role in the evolution of humanity and even the cosmos, because as we may leave from this world, and I think we'll wake up in what is called the mansion worlds and just continue where we left off here, yet
Right.
in a form that is more matching, reflecting who we are in our true character here. So who are we in our true character here? And that's looking at the consequences
Mhm.
of the decisions that you made.
Right.
So, are you looking at the consequences before you make those decisions? And what that has to do with living up to the values that you say you have.
Right, right. I think that you're absolutely right. There's so many choices that we have. You have to understand yourself and those around you. There's so many things that you can do that don't require a great deal of skill or experience to be more fragrant. Exactly, and to show kindness to those around you. Being more conscious to smile at strangers. What's wrong with that? Do that. Do that. They'll smile back, and that'll feel good. Um, to just the simple things. Pass it forward theory, the
I
pass
love
it
that.
forward
You brought that up in a
concept.
recent
Um,
conversation,
that
passing
was
it forward.
that's just brilliant. Whoever came up with that, or whoever really showcased that thought. I think if we can really do more of that, and more kindness to every day throughout everyday life, it doesn't have to be this big monumental task that you take on. I think that you can do more good and spritz the souls others as well as yours, more so in all the small things that you do. And some of us don't interact with others. Some folks are home working from a home office, but maybe they're on the phone with customer service, 100, 200 people a day. Hmm. There's a lot you can do with that. Um, and so, in wherever place you find yourself, I think that you can really increase that spritzing of the soul, that kindness, that love, that divine within. Let it shine, let it come through, and you'll see. The results, or you may never see the results. Most likely you won't, but others will. Others will. And when you get to the afterlife, your soul will likely shine brighter because you will find out what difference you have made, what you have made, and what you have accomplished. The little things, the small things, and the big things. So, I think that we just want people to be more aware of the things they can do to grow their soul.
Yes. You said a lot in there, and I interrupted you because I was so excited. So I'm going to repeat that important point that we talked a lot about before, is the passing it forward, passing it on.
Oh yes.
When when you respond to someone's soul fragrance, then perhaps get curious around what it does to you, and it may inspire you to pass it forward, and what does it do to your insides, and the positivity that it might create, the hormones, the good anti-aging hormones. So if we're really talking about the health of the outer body when we're concerned with plastic surgeries or fillers, the internal, and you can do your own research. We're not going to do a deep dive into the science of it, yet the science is coming out now proving that positivity, cheerfulness, encouragement, kindness, it produces in you this anti-aging serum is what I'm calling it. So
I
you're
love that.
literally creating the health from the inside out. So passing it forward and putting a smile on your face is one of
Right.
the easiest things that you
Right.
can
Yes.
do. A lot of people tell me I have a resting bitch face, so I have worked so hard on just turning up turning up the edges,
Uh,
and through my 30 years of yoga therapy, what I've learned about that, it automatically relates to the muscles of the lungs, and it helps to improve, to expand your lung capacity. And then what that does is help you to get more oxygen into your lungs, into your brain, so that you think more clearly. So there's this waterfall effect of
I believe
just
it.
turning up the size of the mouth.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's such a ripple effect with a simple with a smile. There's such a
So
ripple
simple.
effect. Um, I know that it reminds me of my parents. They would make a donation every year to an organization that would help children with cleft palates and to
Wow.
change that horrible look into a smile. And they just firmly believed there was just so much joy that that would give in providing that child with a smile. And hopefully, all those smiles smiled and they smiled back. Can you imagine that ripple effect?
Oh, I
I
can.
believe everything you're saying about the anti-aging effects of happiness and smiles and laughter. I don't know how we can all bring in more humor into our life. I think that that would be something that would require quite a bit of work to just be more humorous and bring more humor in. But I think somehow that's going to grow the soul as well.
I really
That will
agree
grow the
with you
soul.
on that point. In fact, I've
Yeah.
consciously you say you don't know how. I bet you know more than you think you know. And I
Hmm.
have been consciously watching stand-up comedians and consciously looking at myself less seriously, literally going to a mirror or even put myself on a Zoom recording or just a FaceTime video and smiling at myself and realizing,
That's
feeling what that does to me. And it reminds me of a project back when selfies were first coming into popularity. And
mhm.
it was specifically for young ladies to boost their confidence by learning how to take good selfies. And I thought at
Wow.
the time,
Wow.
it was back in my 20s, 30 years ago, and I was like, that is so fake and so prideful and ego. Now I'm like, it's exactly what I do. And
Fantastic
it makes me feel
exercise.
good. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And when
And
I
it makes you
see
feel good.
creators out in the world doing their thing to post on social media, I used to have a judgment about it, but now, I giggle and I send them good vibes and was like, they're doing their thing and good for them. And it makes me even more joyful than the judgment that comes along. So that acceptance piece of humanity, I think, is a huge
It
inner
is.
work that makes you more beautiful on the outside.
Definitely, definitely. And I think you made me think about perhaps some of these influencers that are not particularly physically beautiful, but because they speak and they shine and they're humorous and they're positive, that they're just so attractive. They're so
It's true.
attractive. You want to watch them, you want to hear what they have to say because they are just full of love and life and they have the divine within because they're confident. And so I think that it comes to a point where it doesn't really, like we talked about balance earlier, it doesn't really matter, what you look like. Really matters is the soul, the inner you. And that's starting to come across now, that everybody can pick up a camera and a video. But I think that the next level, as we've mentioned so many times on this podcast, is, the hereafter, the life after. What you're going to look like is what your soul looks like. And that's a point that I feel like we need to keep getting across to young
Yes.
people, young women that, are spending so much money, so much time, so much effort on cosmetics and, possibly surgeries and artificial this and artificial that. They really just need to realize how important the soul is to beautify
Mm, it's so
as well.
true. Well, it's Carrie, you brought up something that we've mentioned on other podcasts before in the Divine Within series, and it's this idea of getting curious around who you surround yourself with.
Hmm.
And the 10 most influential people, even if you're not physically surrounded by them, yet who takes up space in your mind? And
Hmm.
the 10 most influential situations or personalities, and getting curious around what fragrance that they permeate into your life, and that also moves into the conversation that we mentioned before around what career, what vocation are you moving into or are you in currently, or a service project or a team that you're working with. These kind of situations add so much to what your soul fragrance is evolving from. So I think
And
that is a practical element to really look at to see how you can become more beautiful from the inside out is who you're around.
And I think you said something that made me think about, a lot of people, young people that are getting started in their careers and such may feel like, well, I'm stuck. I have to do this. This is what my job requires me to do. So I can't really, uh, fly like a butterfly or get out there and do something different. I have to do what my career requires me to do right now. But I think that they're probably aware of this, but there's so much volunteer opportunity out there, that I think that if you consciously select some volunteer opportunities that are going to be good for your soul, they're going to spritz your soul, that are make you feel better, do good, then I think that you're leaning towards that way. You're bringing yourself into where you need to be. So I don't want you to ever feel stuck. Um, uh, you know, f- f- Find a way to do something that's going to make your inner soul grow and your inner soul to be more fragrant. Get out there if it even requires doing volunteer work. Find a friend, talk a friend into do it with you. Make a friend. Go alone. There's birds of a feather flock together, right? Pick something you can volunteer in and go there and meet others that want to do that same task. And I think that there's really a lot of opportunity for us if you really work on it and think about it.
Mm, that is so true. And you and me, I know both of us live altruistic, service oriented lives. And I admire you because I am also working
Thank
on
you.
my first children's book. You're welcome, because you are your own illustrator for your children's book. And as you were speaking with service to the planet, you're not only bringing around truth in your books for children, yet you're also the artistic, not just the words, but the illustrations, and how important creativity is, I think, a muscle that we have to work, that
Absolutely.
immediately improves connection with God and that divine uh, movement, expression out into the world to help evolve the human species. I'm so proud of you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. It really, there's a story to it all for another time, of course, but doing something that was a little bit out of my comfort zone,
That
um,
That's a
eh,
good practical tool.
Absolutely. I did not intend to be my own illustrator, but it just happened that way. And I realized that it was passable. It was not so bad. It was actually good. And I have
It's
improved
very
on the
good.
third book. There's a lot of color in my illustrations. That's for sure. It's very colorful. But I got out of my comfort zone. I had to, and I got into something I had no idea I was going to enjoy so much. And it's interesting because this task of illustrating my children's books require hours and hours of just head down at a kitchen table, hours on end, in quiet almost, and thinking about what I want the image to look like. How is it going to match the text and the manuscript? I've changed the manuscript slightly to match the illustration that I desire. So I feel like doing a task like that is almost like growing my soul in a way, because I am asking for help. I am praying for help. I'm wanting some guidance. I'm thinking, but most importantly, I am listening to my thoughts. A lot of time we will pray and beg and plead, but we're scattered, running here and there, hither and thither. I mean, I've done years and years of that. Trust me. Um, um, but when you stop and listen to, or just be available to listen to your thoughts, maybe a thought will come to you that, well, that's a good thought. And you wonder, did I think that, or was I given that thought? I don't know. But when you provide that time, that quiet time, getting out of your comfort zone, providing an activity that allows you to think, um, then you might actually be given some guidance if you allow yourself some quiet time. Um, a lot of us will be commuting. To work, or instead of putting the radio on and listening to everybody else's babble, you can use that time to hopefully be available to hear what God has to tell you. So there are many situations that people may find themselves in that will allow them the opportunity to pray, to hear thoughts, and to maybe get answers and guidance. Um, and that comes about when you make that conscious effort to do something good, to do something different, to do some volunteer work, just to get out of your comfort zone and help to spritz your soul.
I love that. I love that you brought up um, doing the uncomfortable. And
Yes,
so this is an encouragement to all of you out there who have had a lifelong dream. If you have had a lifelong dream that you haven't put energy into, I am here to tell you, just get started, because just putting an idea down on paper, or even making some notes in AI, or I love the fact that you don't use AI for your illustrations, by the way, that moving out of that thinking that it can't be done, but it's an idea that you've had for 40 or 50 years. I think that it's supposed to come out of you. If you've had that
absolutely.
dream for so long, it's itching to come out of you. And how
And
that being
here's
uncomfortable is going to be that soul fragrance building.
Absolutely. And I must say, I got some help from friends. But the reason why I got help from friends is because if you think it and you speak it, then the conversations can come into play, and someone may help you, offer you some guidance. Somebody before me published a book and told me A, B, C, one, two, three. This is what you do. Somebody else told me this is a gal who takes your thought and puts it into a book. So I got guidance from friends, guidance from spiritually fragrant friends, and that's what made the difference for me. So if you can think it, you can get it out, you can talk about it, and then eventually you'll do it. So there is a process to that, I believe. But get started. You're absolutely right. Get started. Start speaking about it. Get it going.
Oh, I love that. I think I'm saying his name correctly. Goethe, maybe Geothe. And I'm paraphrasing,
Both, I think.
yet it's be bold. And if something, I said it before, and it needs to be said again repeatedly, of this is the time to do it. And the more I get comfortable with doing something, there is a peace that comes around it. When I initially have had a thought, and I get anxious or lack of confidence, and then I have the thought multiple times over a certain duration, whether it's short or long, there is a peace that comes with it. And like you said, when you start talking about it, it will start attracting. You're putting that soul fragrance out into the world that is the magnetizer for that service project, that initiative, a new business, a new organization to come into reality to help create what we were talking about earlier in another segment, that social fragrance and the spiritual fragrance of an entire planet. So we'll leave on these thoughts of spritzing your soul, encouraging you to smile, get curious around what values are you living in integrity with, and do something. Get courageous and confident. Start talking about that dream and bringing your beauty that you wish to see when you wake up on the next planet, on the next level, wherever we go from here. Start understanding that you can begin now by bringing that beauty forward so that you're even more beautiful. Miss Kerri said it before, you're even more beautiful on the
You have
next
control
level.
over that.
That's the thing. You have control over it.
You have control to make those choices to be more beautiful. Absolutely. So we
So
want to
all of you out
spritz
there,
our souls.
spritz your souls. Thank you for joining us on this
My pleasure.
podcast of The Divine Within. I'm AprilHelen, your host, with our guest, Kerri Jones, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
On the Divine Within podcast, we share real conversations to help you find a personal connection with God. My goal is to support your faith, growth, and journey toward discovering the divine within yourself. Join us to deepen your faith and spiritual journey.